It is that time again, friends. Warframe Devstream has just concluded and we have a metric buttload of information. What we're going to talk about today is an in-depth showcase of the next upcoming Warframe. What a fun guy! The Oberon Rework, long awaited, finally to be delivered very soon, and a whole bunch of other information regarding the roadmap for the end of the year. As always, big shoutouts to these lovely chicks and dudes for the financial support, and now let's jump right into it. Starting out with a couple of housekeeping items, but they are very interesting, so please do not skip ahead. First of all, the Tenno concert, the live concert that happened at TennoCon, that now has been released as an album on all streaming services, plus there is a complete movie that they made out of it, which is now also available. If you want to listen to the Tenno concert in a remastered, studio-like quality way, with a nice movie to go alongside it, you can now do that. Next housekeeping item would be Quest to Conquer Cancer. Every year, Warframe teams up with their creators, and this time I'm also in with it, to do fundraising to fund cancer research. The whole thing is going to run throughout October with a lot of stuff in there. Plus, there is a new charity merch pack with this beautiful best dad ever stalker plushie right there. And also, you're going to get a beautiful new Zephyr skin. I think you get that for free, right? I'm not 100% sure. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on this. It looks beautiful. I'm probably going to use this going forward. Up next, a little bit of a sad note, and that is that the voice actor for Ordis, Mike Leatham, is going to retire. He has been with the company from the very start. He was actually the 5th employee, I think they said, meaning Ordis is going to get a new voice actor. That will be Kevin Lim, who has already been working with Warframe. For example, his voice is the voice of Bombastine in Deviri, and he is going to be Ordis going forward. Important to note here, the old Ordis voice lines will remain. They have not been re-recorded. Only the new Ordis voice lines going forward will be voiced by Kevin.
Tenno, Ordis may sound a little, refreshed. Even Cephalons can retire.
Then also, from the 1st of October, we're gonna have our Halloween event again. Knights of Naberus is gonna return with a whole bunch of stuff, the Knights of Naberus shop with the daughter in Deviri, but this time we're also gonna have a Halloween-themed BARO Kittir in a new outfit who is gonna have some surprising new wares in his shop. One of the things that they showcased was a sort of Knights of Naberus themed version of the Wolf of Saturn 6 armor set. Definitely looked very sick. Nightave is also going to start with a new season soon. That will be Nora's Mig's Dreams of the Dead. They didn't give a release date yet. They said they're going to tell us early enough so we can prepare. But given the fact that the current Nightave season is coming to an end soon, you might want to grind through it if there are still some more things that you want to get. And then lastly for the housekeeping, and this actually really impressed me, they showed for the first time Switch 2 gameplay of Warframe, and that looked really smooth. The loading times they say were a third of what it is on the normal Switch, so much faster. And also we see a gameplay in Helvania, which is probably the most taxing tileset in the game right now, running at a smooth 60 FPS. They said that the Switch 2 version of Warframe is going to run at 60 FPS if docked. So yeah, for all the Switch Tenno out there, the suffering will come to an end. I've heard the normal Switch version was pretty bad. This one looked honestly really smooth and impressive. Up next, let's talk about the new update, which is probably the reason that you're here in the first place. This one is going to come in October the 15th to be precise, and it is called Vallis Undermind. It is going to play in the Orb Vallis, but not overground. It is going to take place in underground caves, which will be a brand new tileset coming with this update. First of all though, let's talk about the new Warframe. He is a fungus-themed Warframe. What a surprise, right? What a fun guy. His name is going to be Nokko, and in lore, Nokko is going to be Yareli's little brother. He's also a very cheerful guy, and he has some amazing cute animations coming with a brand new ephemera. This will be these little fungus dudes that jump around you, and they are pretty stacked, might I say. Now, in order to be able to play this new update, you have to have the new war quest finished, and then what you can do is, there's going to be a new vent in Fortuna through which you can walk, and there you'll find a brand new character, his name is Nightcap, who is going to take on the role of the update vendor, you know, as with every update where you can get the Warframe and the signature weapon and so on and so forth. However, there's also more. This update is finally going to bring plant decorations, so you can now give your base of operations a green touch, and they look very, very cool. I'm definitely looking forward to that. As for the lore, there is going to be a new individual, let's say. It kind of looks a bit like a Helmand type of thing, where you can unlock little background stories by finding different types of fungi while you're in the new Tileset, and then you can give that to this individual called Prince, where you will then have a sort of hallucinative little adventure that you play with the little fungus dudes from Nokko, and that will then give you all the story beats and the background story tied to Nokko and this update. In order to get into the new Tileset, you're gonna go into the Fortuna elevator, but this time it's gonna go down, and this is not directly tied to the Fortuna overworld. It's not an open world, it's just a Tileset, just like, you know, with most other Tilesets as well. And it's gonna come with a new game mode called Critter Rescue. They didn't really show too much about it, but it's probably gonna be a variation of the rescue type. As for Nokko himself, let's talk about his skills. His first two skills grow different types of fungi on the battlefield who can spread spores and deal AoE damage, so they say basically your goal with this is going to be to sort of plant a garden of fungi to strategically place them over the battlefield, where one type is going to inflict AoE viral damage, probably also for priming, and then the other ones will give you an energy buff for you and the team, as well as an ability strength buff, so there will be quite a lot of buffing and priming going on with Nokko. His fourth skill is then a little mushroom that bounces between the fungi that you placed on the field and enemies, which then will trigger even more spores and all to create a whole cluster of carnage, they said, so that's going to be a big focus probably. And with your third skill, that's going to be your panic button, so to speak, you're going to turn into one of those little stacked fungi dudes, which will then rapidly heal you and apparently also makes enemies around you fall asleep or something. They didn't really show all too much of a detailed breakdown here, and from the way they showed it, I don't have a crazy idea on how I would build him yet, so I guess we're going to look into that once the update drops. Of course, you're going to have your day one build here on the channel, so if you don't want to miss that day one, you might want to think about maybe leaving the channel a sub. Welcome to the crew. Now, Nokko is going to come with a signature weapon, of course. This one is going to be the Arbusep, is going to be an Archgun, and that neatly leads into one of the biggest and most unexpected topics in this dev stream, which would be that Archguns will become the most overpowered type of weapon, no clickbait, because they're going to get the hugest buff you could imagine. Archguns will now get arcanes, where you'll be able to go and install one primary weapon arcane and one secondary weapon arcane onto every Archon going forward. Can you imagine the combinations, the overpoweredness? I think this is going to propel Archguns into the stratosphere of Mars. It's going to be crazy, and I'm definitely going to make videos about it. Like, this is going to be huge. Archguns will be meta very soon. That would be the next update, but don't click away just yet because there is much more to talk about. However, let's go a bit into cosmetics first. Talking about the new deluxe skin, this one is gonna be a Wukong deluxe skin, which is crazy beautiful. I love this, and I'm definitely gonna incorporate that into my Wukong fashion frame. It too comes with a skin for the sun and moon, so that's gonna go hand in hand. And if you want to know more about Wukong, I already have a build guide relatively recently on my channel, so in case you want to give your Wukong another look, that might be also something interesting for you. However, Wukong doesn't come alone. Lavos is also going to get a new collection, including the Chimea deluxe skin, which also looks absolutely beautiful. We have concept art plus a little bit of in-game footage of it, so if you like Lavos, you're gonna eat good tonight. And as if that's not enough, we're also going to have a full round of new Tenno gen coming with multiple Warframe skins. We'll have a new skin for Dagoth, plus another second helmet for her, a new skin for Varuna, for Citrine, a new helmet for Corvex, which I think looks absolutely stunning, a new Syandana, you see it in the background on screen, so there's going to be a lot new fashion in the next update. Next, reworks. You might have expected Oberon Rework, and they did talk about Oberon Rework, and we're going to talk about Oberon Rework later in this video, but first of all, another one that I didn't really see coming that early, and that would be Damage Attenuation Rework. This one has been requested by the community for a little bit, and it's gonna come in 2 weeks with the next update as well. Now, Pablo did a lot of in-detail explanation on how damage attenuation worked in the past, what the problems were, and what they're gonna change going forward. However, I'm just gonna briefly sum it up for you right here. If you want to know more about it, of course you can watch the VOD of the stream. First of all, as it is right now, damage attenuation has fixed values, fixed damage caps so to speak, at which point it will kick in. So if you deal more than X damage to an enemy, damage attenuation will start, and these are very strict. Going forward, they're going to make it more dynamic by changing it from flat numbers to a percentage increase so that the damage attenuation starts later. Next, as you might have known, depending on which boss you fight, which type of enemy, whether it's an Acolyte or a Kuvalich or whatever, there were different damage attenuation formulas for each and every one of those enemy types. Some were weaker to high fire rate and all whatnot. Going forward, they're going to standardize this, having one damage attenuation formula that works on every single enemy that has damage attenuation in the first place, making it much more predictable and much easier to keep in mind as to what you can use against whom. However, given the fact that the damage attenuation now takes longer to kick in with all those changes, that would make it that the enemies would technically die very quickly, and to counteract that, they also made it that the bosses are now going to have more effective hit points to sort of balance that out. And one more fix is that, if you play in multiplayer, they're now also going to track the damage attenuation kick in for every player individually, and not just across the board for everybody together. All in all, Pablo said this is going to be a big change for a lot of different enemies, and he said there will probably be further fixes after it has been released, so they're kindly asking for our feedback for every single boss so they can adjust the damage attenuation in the weeks to come. I overall think this is very, very cool because it makes sure that if you have a strong loadout, you're gonna kill those bosses faster, but still, if your setup is not as strong, you will still have a chance, and if it manages to strike this middle ground, I think everybody is gonna be happy. Next though, let's talk about the one rework that you have all eagerly been waiting for, that has been requested for I think over 2 years now, coming also with the Vallis Undermind update in mid-October, is the Oberon Rework. And also here we have a video from Pablo where he explains all the changes in detail. I think he did a really good job here showcasing all the different parts of this new rework, so I'm just gonna let the man himself explain it right now.
So let's start with his third ability, Renewal. So Renewal is a heal over time. It now applies on affinity range instead of a fixed range. The ability cost is now fixed. It doesn't change. Before it increased for every ally that got it. So it also increases armor for you and your allies. So you can see in that upper right, I have a 638. That is how much armor Renewal is giving me. And for allies, it gives twice as much. So you can actually protect them quite a bit with that. Also, the heal is doubled when used on Hallowed Ground. So let's put a Hallowed Ground here. Hallowed Ground is now a circle. No longer a cone. You no longer need to mod extreme ranges to cover the area. It is now always radial. Additionally to that, it now does radiation much more reliably. Before it was like a chance to deal radiation once per second. Now it's guaranteed radiation twice per second. We also upgraded how Hallowed Ground interacts with nullifiers. So now it will only prevent the effects of Hallowed Ground on allies that are inside the bubble or on enemies that are inside the bubble. It will no longer dispel the ground. We also made that change for Oraxia, and we also made a few other changes to to 3 other interactions with nullifiers. Let me talk about his passive. So you see those shields that I have around me? Those are his new passive. Whenever Oberon picks up a health orb, he will get one protection like that, and we'll give it to his allies as well. And that protection, what it does is when you take a hit, you take no damage. Oberon's 1, there's an Eximus, who's a good target to use it on. So you see, when I cast it, it immediately removed all of his overguard in one shot, and it does percentage damage, and then does a secondary hit around them for that damage, for the percentage of damage to enemies around it. There you go. So the entire overguard is gone, and you see it killed a bunch of enemies around it. His 4th ability now has line of sight, so you have to be careful where you use it. The armor strip no longer requires you to have them on the grass. It will work in any situation. It does way more damage now, something like more than triple, I think, and also scales based on how many stacks of radiation they have on them, so that deals even more damage. It also gives you armor for every enemy you hit, and it also scales with how many stacks of radiation you have. So in the top there, now it says 1288. If you remember earlier, it was like 600 and something, so it now gives you even more armor there, which obviously synergizes really well with then giving armor to your allies and protecting them. Also, this ability always used to give health orbs. We just picked some of those. Now it marks enemies, so when you kill them, they still drop the orbs. You can see the orbs flying there, even though I didn't kill them with the ability. Just the fact that...
So much for the rework. To me, sounds really darn good. He's still going to be a supportive unit, so he's not going to lose his role, but there is a lot more quality of life bringing him into 2025. And for me as a Revenant player, that low-key Mesmer skin as his passive is also quite enticing, if you ask me. But yeah, let me know what you think about the Oberon rework in the comments down below. Would be curious to hear your opinion. Of course, I cut the Pablo video together a little bit. If you want to have the full details, then there will be a dev blog for you to read all of it again. But if you think all of this was quite a lot for an October update, then wait, because there is even more. As they have announced at TennoCon, coming with Vallis Undermind will also be the brand new beginner quest, The Teacher, that will take place right after the intro quest, Vor's Prize, and teach every Warframe beginner how to use the modding system. They didn't show any quest gameplay, just a little intro cinematic, so we can't really deduct all too much. Once it comes out, we're of course going to take a look at it here on the channel. The only question that I have right now is, why are there corpus on Earth? Isn't Earth like a Grineer planet? It's kind of interesting. Maybe we get an answer in the story quest. Looking forward to it. And finally, a couple more things launching with Vallis Undermind would be quality of life and various things. For example, there are going to be more options and settings for the screen shake and to manipulate how exactly it's going to play out for you. Basically, accessibility options, which I think is cool. They're going to implement the relighting of the Grineer Asteroid tileset, which looks absolutely stunning. Plus, this is also going to be applied to relays, so they don't look as 2010 anymore as they used to. And one more cool thing for the fashion frameistas out there, you can now equip both sides of an armor piece at the same time. And finally, before we end the video for today, we also have to talk about the old piece, which is going to be the big cinematic update coming in December at the end of the year that they also showcased at TennoCon. And what they said at TennoCon is that there is going to be an Operator and Drifter rework, making them all look much nicer and much more modern. In today's dev stream, we saw a little bit more about this, which would be as follows. First of all, yes, this is not only Operator, this is also Drifter themed, so it is for both models. Then, the body proportions of the characters have been adjusted to be more realistic. Beforehand, they have been a little bit cartoonish, now it looks much nicer. We're also going to have many more sliders to adjust the facial look of our characters. There's going to be a whole makeup option, eyebrow settings, much more detail when adjusting the eye colors, and also there's going to be a hair remaster with nicer looking hair physics and all. You can see it in the background. This looks like a 2025 game, and it was long overdue. They said this is not everything. In the next dev streams, we're gonna see more about it, so I'm gonna keep you up to date on this, but visually speaking, this already looks very, very nice. And then the second thing they revealed about the old piece update, and this was so to speak the big cliffhanger, they showed the third Protoframe, which is going to be introduced. As you remember, at TennoCon they already showed Proto-Harrow and Proto-Wisp, but they didn't show the third Protoframe yet who would release. They now did, and to nobody's surprise, Of course, it's going to be the Protoframe version of Uriel, the new Warframe who is going to come with that update. This new Protoframe's name is going to be Rothe, and he is the first Orokin Protoframe ever released in Warframe. He's a pure Orokin, blue-skinned, and he really doesn't like Albrecht Entrati. Very, very interesting stuff right there. Unfortunately though, that was everything we saw about him. Probably in the next dev stream they're gonna go into more detail. Another massive shout out to Niels V, Demon Lord Zell, Demon Emperor, Emperor Prime, Nost Linux Gaming, Turtle Beer on the Kaneo 2, Skylar Bowser, Mihawky, Phil the Meme, Socrates the Almighty Rat, Leo Morizaki, Shadow Lockhart, Hound Tagas, Pate Crusader, Trolloloxen, Boomia1, Mr. Games Plays, Save, Awindai, and all other generous channel members for your continuous support. We see each other hopefully in the next one, and until then, as always, good loot.